I'm excited to have back on the show on Doctor's Corner is Dr. Helene Bertrand. She is a retired family physician and who has spent the last 10 years concentrating on treating pain. She's back on Doctor's Corner to talk about how we can protect our backs. And for runners out there, this is a great opportunity to listen in to Dr. Bertrand. Welcome back.
Well, it's very nice to be back with you, Christine.
Yes. So how, I understand running is a forward motion. Is that true? And does it affect your back?
Well, running is a forward motion, and the way it affects your back most is if you are running downhill. Because when you run downhill, the foot has to travel further before it hits the ground. And when the foot hits the ground, that sends a shock wave all the way up your leg until it reaches this pelvic bone. And when it reaches this, you see, this your essentially your thigh joint, your hip joint is right inside that pelvic bone. So when your foot hits the ground from going downhill, it hits it from much higher distance. There's a greater distance, and there's a greater shock to that bone. And if you look at this bone, you'll see this joint, you'll see that it's essentially an irregular joint. And if you strain it, you're going to have pain in your back. That's where the back pain that runners experience comes from. It doesn't come from your spine, because the shock of running is absorbed by this joint here. So yes, running, if you're forward, it's going to, if you're leaning forward because you're going down a hill, that's going to be more of a shock to your back.
Wow. And so what are some tips then to protect your back?
Well, it depends. I mean, I would run uphill rather than running downhill. It's
harder. It's harder.
It's harder, but you've got things like in Vancouver, we have the grouse grind. So if you're running up the grouse grind and you come down by the cable car, then you're protecting your back, actually. So it's because there's much less distance for your foot to travel when you're going uphill than when you're going downhill. You could run barefoot, because when you're running barefoot, the skin of your foot is the cushioning you've got under your foot actually helps to cushion the blow of your running. You can run on tiptoes rather than running on your heels, because when your heel hits the ground, it's the shock is transmitted directly to your back. But if you're running on the balls of your feet, then the foot absorbs the shock, and by the time the heel hits the ground, there's less strain on your back. These are all things that you can do to protect your back when you're running. The other thing you can do if you have back pain is to wear a pelvic belt. Now, I've got a pelvic belt here, and I'll show you how it should be put on, okay? You put it on this way here, and it has to go just underneath the two bones here. And in the front, it has to go underneath the two sticky outy bones in the front, okay? Because if you're putting the belt in this way, then you are preventing this joint from moving so much. You're cushioning the blow of every step you take. So people who have low back pain, especially when they're running, should put on this belt, pelvic belt, to protect them. The pelvic belt that I use is called a Cerola belt. Have you heard of it?
No, that is very good information, Dr. Bertrand.
I'll show you how I would put it on, okay? So if you have back pain and you're going running, you're going to take this Cerula belt and you're going to put it this way around you. And then here, you feel for the two little, you see how my bones are?
Yes.
You go underneath those two bones, okay? So these are the sticky outy bones, okay? And it should be just above your hip bone here, and then just below these sticky outy bones. And then you open the belt and you pull it forward this way so that it's going to be good and tight around your body. And if it's good and tight, then every step you take, that belt will be absorbing some of the shock that normally would be absorbed by this joint here. That way, you're protecting your back. Remember, it's not the spine, it's not this part that's affected by running. It's this part. See how I lift up when my foot hits the ground, see how that bone moves? That's what you're trying to protect.
Yes. And what about shortening your stride while running down the hill? Would that help or no?
Yes, it would actually. Yes, it would. Taking a long stride going downhill means you're going down further. And when you go down further, when your foot hits the ground, it hits harder. You want to avoid hitting the ground hard. It's not good for you.
Yes. And so it's great information. So what about, are there other benefits? Like you should start protecting your back at an early age, right? That's the, to have a lifelong running career.
Absolutely. And if you want to protect your children's back, let them run barefoot because when they're running barefoot, they're not just protecting their back, but they're strengthening the muscles in their feet. And these muscles are are holding up the arch. That's going to prevent all the problems that come with flat feet and arches that are not holding up. Because if your arch goes flat, that's going to give you a whole bunch of problems.
Yes. I mean, so what about changing up your terrain too? Like shorter strides going down the hill, but changing, like running on grass, maybe not barefoot, maybe, but changing it up, that will protect your back.
Yes, it will. Yes, it will. Whatever, if you can find cushioned areas, then you're helping yourself. And grass is a wonderful thing to run on. But of course, if too many people run on grass, then the grass goes away.
But barefoot is excellent. I mean, I've tried barefoot running. It's a different, so just there's benefits that you've been telling us about how to protect your back as a runner. What about those who don't run? Like say you're working out in your garden and you're walking or golfing. What would you suggest?
Well, the one thing you want to do is you don't want to bend forward when you're picking up your weeds or your golf ball, or you see, because if you're bending forward, you're putting a huge amount of strain on this joint. So what you need to do is you need to flex your knees. You need to squat rather than bending forward. That's something that will protect your back. People who spend a lot of time in a forward bend position are putting a huge amount of strain on these joints. Put a strain on these joints and you're going to have a problem with your back.
Yes. What about, well, if you have a poor habit of always leaning forward, picking up the golf ball in the garden or running, so you have to get in the habit of being cautious of your posture and one thing at a time, like taking these baby steps to protect your back. And it's starting now.
Yes, well, the thing to do is to strengthen your quad muscles, like the muscles of your thigh that essentially allow you to squat. Those are the ones that you should be strengthening. And there's all kinds of exercises you can do to strengthen your quads. Like one of them would be to just sit yourself with your back against the wall and your feet on the ground, but don't have a chair. That's going to strengthen your quad muscles. And if you strengthen those, you can then squat more easily. Now, the problem is that as we get older, our knees don't get younger. And if our knees don't get younger and they prevent you from squatting, then you're putting a strain on your back. And then using a Sorolla belt might be something that would protect your back while you're golfing or while you're gardening. So, like if you can't protect your back one way, you can do it the other way. Things that you can do to help your whole spine is to be straight. You see, a lot of people, especially as they get older, or if they do a lot of work on their computer and they're leaning forward like this, or they're watching their cell phone all day, what they do then is their head is forward, and that puts a tremendous amount of strain on the neck, and their shoulders are forward, so that will hurt their shoulders when they're lifting up their arms, and their back is curved, and that doesn't help your back. So you want to make sure as much as possible to hold your shoulder blades together. So you can do exercises to hold your shoulder blades together. Like when you're working on the computer, think, okay, shoulder blades together, and then keep your shoulder blades together for 10 minutes, and then you're going to be helping your back. And when your shoulder blades are together, that brings your chin in, that brings your shoulders back. And so it protects your neck, it protects your shoulders, and it protects your back. So these are things that you can do to help your back when you're not running.
Yes, it's wonderful. And what about stretching?
Well, if I don't see a huge amount of advantage to stretching, except if your back is hurting. And then I've invented this stretch exercise, this 2-minute stretch exercise that will straighten out your back. And if you want to know more about it, all you have to do is go to YouTube and look under my name, Helene, Helene. It's like Helen with an E at the end, Bertrand, Bertrand. And look under the word sacroiliac, okay? Because that's the name of these joints. And what can happen is you can make them crooked. And if they're crooked, they hurt. And they hurt very badly, and they can hurt all the time. So if you want to straighten out these joints, then go to my YouTube channel and check it out, because I just finished a research project on it, and 90% of the people who did the exercise, after 2 minutes of doing the exercise, their pain had gone down by half. So you can cut away pain very quickly if you do that exercise. There's a cream that I've invented too that is amazing for taking away pain, and people who want it will be able to get samples of it. I'll show you. This is that's the cream, and that cream I've shown takes away half your pain in an average of 15 minutes. That's better than narcotics. It's better than anything else, in fact, for taking away pain. So if you're interested, it's called QR Cream. And if you go to the QR Cream website, you'll find it. And on the website, you can actually order a sample. If you want to know if it'll work for you, you can order a sample. So that is one way that you can find yourself a lot of relief.